After 6 seasons in cars that weren't capable of contending for the championship, Verstappen found himself in a career-defining fight for the World Championship last year. And for so many years, Mercedes and Hamilton were considered the gold standard in motorsport. Meanwhile, Verstappen and Leclerc have been rivals since they were kids karting. The two are more than familiar with one another on track, and they have formed something of a bond. For many years, they have competed against each other and can read each other very easily. So, is Max Verstappen better than Charles Leclerc? This season, the talent gap between Verstappen and Leclerc has decreased significantly more than we previously expected. Having said that, I said it after Bahrain because it became obvious that Leclerc is not just some driver who is a tier below the average. It almost seems like he belongs there. Honestly, I wouldn't say that he's completely on there yet, because I think Max is that guy, and if you just watch Formula 1, it's kind of hard to argue against him. I mean, he's on his way to being a walking podium, but he isn't a walking podium yet. Moreover, he's one of the top 2 finishers for being real. Since the start of last year, it's always first or second, and it has been that way ever since he finished on the podium. As a result, when it comes to Leclerc and Max, many people seem to think that there's a clear agenda when in reality there's none. You might even praise him for winning in Australia and driving very well that day, and controlling the race from start to finish. In my opinion, it takes more than this to say he's a better driver than Verstappen. Then Max Verstappen brought Lewis Hamilton to Abu Dhabi, fake title or no title. The 7-time champion was pushed to his physical and mental limits during all those races. It's the first time we're seeing Hamilton taken in another car, whether better or worse. I think it was best in certain situations and worse in others. There were races last season in which the Mercedes was hands down the most competitive car. Indeed, it can be argued that Mercedes was the best car on the grid for the last 4 races of the season when Hamilton departed because it was faster in Turkey and the poor and the good together were both good at the start of the season. Yes, Max did that. Likewise, if Leclerc is on Hamilton's level and if Leclerc is on the same level as Max, then you're saying that if I put Leclerc in the same situation that Max was in last year, he too would do just as well or better than Max. There's just something about him that makes me wonder if he can. But after he spun at Imola, I thought, well, perhaps he's not that guy after all. Whenever I say he's not that guy, I mean that as a matter of challenging Max. I thought maybe he's not good enough. Despite thinking Max was better than Charles, I still got flamed for it. But of course, I believe that Charles has the potential to be a better driver than Max Verstappen one day. But despite all these, Leclerc said of Verstappen, "It's always been very close, especially in the junior categories. In karting, I remember it was either me or him, and that's why we hated each other at one point, because very often it didn't end in the best way possible." Perhaps among all the drivers on the grid, Hamilton was the closest connection to Max's talent level. According to Car Ranking on Twitter, Verstappen comes first, Lewis comes second, Leclerc comes third, and a variation of fourth downward appears. Is Leclerc a better driver than Lewis Hamilton? The fact that Hamilton is currently in a slump may be an argument in his favor, but this was the same guy that was contending for a world title a few months before. His performance hasn't fallen off since the offseason began. Max is certainly bringing the fight, and I know he has experienced DNFs, but still, he has displayed fierceness. It was not a good ride for him at Imola. He didn't win. He couldn't hold off Paul. He got jumped at the start by Checo. He couldn't overcome Checo. And he spun while chasing him. However, that does not mean Max won't race like that in the future. Perhaps this season we'll have another race like that. Moreover, it has been 4 races, which is something I say a lot since it has only really been 4 races. In that case, jumping to conclusions is a bit difficult. On the other hand, Leclerc talking about Max Verstappen on a rainy Friday at Imola explained further about his relationship with the Dutch driver. "I think it's a very different situation. We have matured a lot, we are much older, even though we are still 25 years old, which is still quite young. At this time, there were episodes which made us hate each other, I'm pretty sure, on some occasions, but then you grow up, obviously. We've both achieved one of our dreams, which is to arrive in Formula 1. And at that time, it was just a dream. Everything looked impossible. So it's great now to be fighting in Formula 1, and there's a lot of respect for each other. So yes, it has changed, for sure." In response, reigning champion Verstappen said after going head-to-head in karts, the pair can laugh about it. Then, Leclerc won again in Australia, extending his championship lead. This pair has worked together and gone head-to-head this season in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, where Verstappen won the first time in 2022. And Verstappen said about Charles, like Charles said, "We've matured a lot and we're both in Formula One, and I mean we are in two top teams and fighting for race wins. And what happened in go-karting, it's actually, you can laugh about it now. Good times." Even if we're being objective in watching the sport, we can't jump to any conclusions about anybody right now if we're analyzing what's taking place. Because I've thought that I've always had, I'm not immediately concluding that Max is better than Charles. Although it doesn't mean that nothing will change by the end of the season if I see Max is making mistakes and that Charles keeps his cool. At the moment, I do believe Max is the better driver. Although I also think Ferrari has an edge in all 4 races so far. There was no doubt that they did better in Australia than they did in Poland and Bahrain, and in Saudi Arabia. They were not far off the pole. Red Bull, however, may have been the best team in Imola. Although both of these drivers made numerous mistakes, their places in the grid made it evident that they are well clear of each other, so one can only compare them to each other. As we witnessed, Max lost out to Charles at the beginning of the sprint race, but he never let Charles get ahead. He never fell behind him by more than 2 seconds. Once Leclerc's tires blew, Max surged ahead and won the sprint race. Do the Ferrari tires have bad management, or does Leclerc have bad tire management? For my part, I'm unsure. Further, it's still the same situation every single time Max Verstappen finishes the race this year. Maybe he would have won in Bahrain as well if his car hadn't failed, we don't know. The only way we can be sure is that either he will get past Leclerc or he will outsmart him again as he did earlier. Max Verstappen is, in my opinion, a better driver than Charles Leclerc, based on historic data. Nevertheless, Leclerc has some luck on his side, as he had the 2 DNFs for Max and Sergio as well. Despite having the Bahrain DNF, Sergio Perez would be within a race win of Leclerc at the moment because he'd have finished 3rd, 4th, and 2nd. And that would most definitely keep him within Charles' range. In the meantime, Charles had the advantage because he had the lead in points. He has over a race win's worth of points on Verstappen. So now that your lead is there, he's squandered a little bit already with the spin at Imola. But this is not over. His lead is still worth a race win. He will still exit Miami with the title lead even if he has the worst race of his life. This is a good lead and a big lead, but the season still has a long way to go. Moreover, the length of these seasons allows the player to make up for mistakes much easier. Further, Hamilton even made a few mistakes last season due to the length of the season, so you could tell it's a big factor this year. He took advantage of the opportunity because he had more races than Max going into Abu Dhabi, and he was able to close the gap. Thanks to those extra races, he was able to catch up to Max. The same thing applies to Max and Leclerc. Max is behind now, but it's been a long season. Regardless of the 2 DNFs, he will be able to keep chipping away at the lead, and he may even be in the lead by 3 races from now, or 2 races from now, depending on how Leclerc does. He'll keep his race win lead ahead of Max if he runs a couple of good races during the week. But it depends on how the Ferrari responds to the tracks we're about to face. As we observed how the Ferrari performs in Saudi Arabia, it holds up very well in slower corners. It's really good in twisty corners, isn't it? On the other hand, the Red Bull has a superior straight line speed. As a result, if we were to race at a track like Spain, Ferrari would theoretically dominate. In the end, what I'm saying is Leclerc needs to beat Max if he has the best car. Then Max would be beating Leclerc if he has the fastest car. Having the better car going into a certain race has been a bit of a fluctuation this year. Nonetheless, Max Verstappen beats Charles Leclerc for the moment. There is just something about him that makes me think he has more experience. He doesn't crash, he doesn't spin, he doesn't make mistakes, and if he did, he would not have as many podiums. Max Verstappen is a thing of the past as you look back at his 2018 season. In the beginning, he was just causing tons of accidents. That he's just being a bunch of goofy accidents, and Verstappen has never been more mature than we're witnessing here, that's for sure. Then right now, Max appears to be at his most mature. He may not have championship pressure on him anymore since he is simply trying to make up points and he is not risking anything anymore because he knows that he is far behind due to his DNFs. Additionally, several factors are at play. To sum up, I consider Verstappen to be a better driver than Charles Leclerc, on balance. I'm not certain this is the case in only my opinion. If Max begins to make more mistakes this year, while Leclerc doesn't, then it's fair enough that maybe Leclerc is better than Max. But we'll have to watch and see because this will be interesting. So do you agree with this? Let us know what you think about this video in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe with a post notification so you don't miss out on Formula One. Thank you for watching.